What's up everyone? Alex here. Final Fantasy VI is my favorite Final Fantasy of all time, for many reasons. But in particular, I just love how it was able to do so much in its super tiny, by today's standards, 3 megabyte file. That's like the size of a photo that you can take with your phone. And while I'll review the game eventually, I thought that since Kefka Palazzo's birthday was on November 19th, it'd be cool to share 6 new things that you might not know about Final Fantasy VI. Let's get started. I don't know if you've heard this yet, but you know how Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake just came out and how it did a great job of honoring the original gameplay and being a great modern remake to boot? Well, it appears as though its producer, Masaki Hayasaka, mentioned in an interview that he would absolutely love to remake Final Fantasy VI in HD 2D next. There's no concrete plans for this yet, he says, but the fact that he added concrete there implies that there are at least conversations within Square Enix to pursue such a project. And judging from everyone's reactions to his response, I think fans would love an HD 2D remake of Final Fantasy VI. Sound off in the comments and let Square Enix know that you'd love this too. However, this won't be the first time Final Fantasy VI was rendered in true 3D fashion, at least partially. Did you know that the Final Fantasy VI Pixel Remaster rendered the beloved opera scene in an HD 2D style and featured Aria de Mezzo Carattere sung in 7 different languages? The story goes that legendary composer Nobuo Uematsu jokingly suggested that it would be too impossible or even too difficult to render this scene in 3D and sung in sync with the scene's required gameplay. When the staff asked Yoshinori Kitase, who directed 6, 7, 8, and 10, what they should do, Kitase replied, "Do anything Uematsu says," which caused the scene to be made. When he saw the scene rendered, Uematsu mentioned that he was overflowed with tears upon hearing all of the different localized versions of the aria. This is a bit cheating, given that how it's only associated with Final Fantasy VI, but did you know that the first Octopath Traveler used Final Fantasy VI as a reference when they were developing it? In the same interview that mentioned that he wanted to remake Final Fantasy VI, Hayasaka said that the team considered Final Fantasy VI as the highest quality pixel art out of all of the RPGs they made within Square Enix. As an aside, I think that Octopath Traveler 2 actually evoked Final Fantasy VI a ton more, as they evolved the series' art style to not just match the game, but also surpass it in many ways. Final Fantasy VI was released on the SNES as Final Fantasy III in the US in 1994. But did you know that Europe didn't get to play Final Fantasy VI until its release on the PS1 in 2002, 8 years later? Europe won't be able to play the original SNES release of the game until many years later, on March 18th, 2011, 17 years later. While Square Enix won't confirm or deny how much of it is canonical, Soraya Saga, who is credited as one of the game's scenario writers and is largely responsible for the development of Edgar and Sabin's stories, wrote a doujinshi that detailed the entire history of the Figaro family. Of particular interest is that this doujinshi included details about the death of Edgar and Sabin's father, Edgar's issues with his mother, as well as the reason why Sabin, Gao, and Cyan seemed to get along so well, because they found a surrogate family with each other. Yoshitaka Amano has mentioned that out of all of the characters he's ever drawn in Final Fantasy, Terra Branford from Final Fantasy VI is his absolute favorite, which is why Terra is depicted the most in his style out of any character in Final Fantasy history. Okay, I'll give you one more since one of the items might be cheating. The Game Boy Advance release of Final Fantasy VI actually surfaced a couple of cut content that was retained in the original cartridge. The Kaiser Dragon, which had no AI script in the original release but had dialogue, appears after slaying all of the dragons in the Dragon's Den again. The Death Warden Rage for Gao can only be obtained in the GBA version, as this enemy does not show up on the Velt in the SNES version. Sadly, the GBA version was never re-released outside of Japan. And that, my friends, are 6, actually 7, new things that you might not know about Final Fantasy VI. Now, tell me, would you love to see a Final Fantasy VI HD 2D remake? What little-known Final Fantasy facts about the entire series do you know about? Post your answers in the comments below so we can talk about it. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.